Yeah! Howdy, y'all! My name's Chef Danger, and welcome back to the Danger Pit! Okay, guys, let's get straight into this. Brisket birria tacos we're making today. This is a fancy schmancy street food found in the tastier parts of America. It's effectively just an expensive, complicated beef stew served in a taco, but let's show you how it's done. And so we start ourselves off with a nice pack of brisket. I've got myself a nice 15-pounder here. I'm just taking my knife and I'm tidying up the edges a little bit. We're going to be cooking this like a brisket, but not properly like a brisket because we're going to be chopping it down and making it into soup. So just your quickest, laziest, fastest trim, that's all you need. Just to take off the big, bulky bits of fat that aren't going to render when it cooks. Bearing in mind, this is going to be a consommé, so what we are going to do is we're going to flip this over and we're going to make sure we get all of the silver skin off the bottom, because otherwise it's just going to end up floating around the soup and it's going to look awful. It won't taste bad, but it'll look awful, so get it all trimmed off there. And so that's it, that's all we're doing. Get this bag, get this in the fridge while we make ourselves our marinade. So the base flavour for this consommé is going to come from these chipotle peppers. Now, chipotle peppers are jalapenos, which have been dried and smoked. We're going to take the stems off, pop the seeds out. Ugh, look at that ugly looking leathery thing. Ugh. But we're going to take them, throw a handful of them in a pan, top it up with some boiling water, and I can already smell the vanilla, the tobacco, the leathery smell coming off these musky peppers. Simmer them for about 20 minutes. And while that's doing its thing, I'm going to grate down a couple of knobs of ginger. I keep mine in the freezer. It just makes it a lot easier to grate it down nice and fine like this. I'm going to throw it into my immersion blender. I'm going to grab 2 cloves of garlic. I'm going to top tail them. I'm going to peel them. This is an arduous process, but, you know, you could lazy out and use lazy garlic, or you could do it properly and get some nice, proper, big garlic cloves in there. Roughly chop them, throw them in the blender. And into the blender, we're going to add all of those chipotle peppers, which have had a chance to soften up and rehydrate now. They're nice and fleshy. We're also going to add around about 1/3 of the liquor from the pan. I'm also going to add a bunch of garlic granules, a whole heap of paprika, going to add a bunch of cumin powder, and an entire jar of oregano goes into this. Give the whole thing a good glug of olive oil to bind it all together. Get it liquidated inside your food processor until the whole thing's looking like a really suspicious looking paste. This smells amazing, by the way. And then it's time to get good and intimate with some sauce and some meat. Make sure you get your gloves on because it's gross. Gonna spoon this outrageous smelling marinade over the top of the meat, the bottom of the meat, and then just using your hands, rub it in, get it in all the crevices, get your plastic, fold it over, and that's it. Bish bash bosh. Get this in the fridge, leave it there for about 2 days.
2 days later.
Again, I'm thinking of the Doctor in Team Fortress 2.
Yeah, I can dig that. Yeah, I've got the leather apron, I've got the leather gloves.
Big gloves. Yeah.
So, let me just move the temperature onions.
The poor onion.
That poor onion.
Oh, like it's a shame you can't record smells. That smells amazing.
God, it really does. I just want to knock a little bit off because I don't want this to go like cakey. I just want it to be like nice marinated beef. So knock this off. God, this one's big. This will be the first time I've ever cooked a brisket uninjected as well.
Huh. Many variables.
Yeah. They say you should only change one thing at a time, but
Here's 12.
yeah, here's something that, as far as I can tell, I've never seen anyone do.
So risky.
Just call me Danger as long as it's relatively safe. Let me take some of these collective leavings and reintroduce them into some of these cuts I've made.
Me and Muffy want you to call it a risky brisky and get it to be a new catchphrase.
This, I'll say it to the camera. This is a risky brisky.
Oh, you just keep bringing that big Prince Philip energy.
And that's how, for now. Go on, love. Go on. Go on. Yes! Nailed it! I forgot I had a strongbow. So, the birria birria brisket has been trapped in brisket prison now for 8 hours or so. It's had enough time to take on the smoke that I want it to take. I'm going to pull it and wrap it just like a regular brisket. I'm not going to put any tallow or anything on it because if it dries out a little bit, that's fine because it's going to become soup. So, oh, ooh. Experiment. is what it is. This brisket's at 165 degrees, which is fully cooked, but not cooked to tenderness like a brisket, but I want to stop the cooking now and cool this right down. So I put it inside a foil boat, store it in my fridge overnight, so that in the morning when I take it out and unwrap it, what I've got is a fully cooked brisket that hasn't passed through the stall, so it hasn't pushed out its moisture, it hasn't rendered all of its fat yet, so all that flavour, all that juice, all that taste and experience is going to be in my soup rather than in the wrapping paper.
God, this smells absolutely crazy good.
Now, if you're a backyard barbecuer like I am, there's a pretty good chance you've never really seen the brisket pulled too early and then sliced into, unless you've messed up your first couple of cooks, like I definitely did. Anyway, I'm taking this brisket and I'm going to be chopping it down into strips and then chopping the strips down into blocks to throw in my stew, so that I can then finish the rendering process when it's actually cooking into the consommé. Now, if I take one of these cross sections with a flat in the point and give it a good squeeze, you can see just how little fat and how little juice is coming out of this. And I'm squeezing as hard as I can. That's because it's all still trapped in the striations between the meat. Oh, look at those burnt ends. They look good, don't they? Anyway, I'm going to be taking these, I'm going to be throwing these in my stock pot with the water and the rest of my ingredients, and then finishing the cook and rendering the fat down inside the soup base. Look at that. What a beautiful cross section. So all of that meat, all of the scrapings off the chopping board, all going to go into the crock pot. Going to take an onion, top it, tail it, get it cut down. Just going to roughly chop this, not my finest work, just hack it apart. It's going into the soup, so it'll melt down by the end of the day. So I split the beef between two crock pots, and I've added in some water, I've added in the onions, set it away to simmer, and we're going to add in the spices. I'm going to throw in a cinnamon stick, I'm going to throw in a handful of bay leaves, I'm also going to throw in some of the reserve marinade from when I first made the birria a few days ago. This is 80 grams of chipotle in adobo, specifically adobo. That vinegary twang offsets all the basic earthy tones in this recipe so far. I'm going to throw in a jar of ancho chilies in adobo as well. Now, anchos are smoked poblano peppers. I'm going to add in about 2 tablespoons of garlic powder. I'm going to add in about 4 tablespoons of oregano. I really like the taste of oregano in this. Drop in a whole bunch more paprika just to give it another little bit more of a kick. We like food quite spicy here, and we want this to taste big and beefy and rich and spicy. Give it a little stir, and then that's it. We're just going to leave this to sit and stew for another 8 hours. And every hour or so, I'm going to come back and I'm going to just taking a spoon, very carefully skim the fat from the top of the soup, and I'm going to reserve this to one side. You'll see shortly what we do with all of this.
Cool, so we've been cooking this for 2 days now. We took a brisket, we smoked it halfway, we cooled it, we chopped it, we made it into a consommé. Do you want to come and have a little look at my bubbly consommé? Let's make a birria taco. Oh yes. I've got flour tortilla. I've got the oil that we skimmed from the top upside down on the griddle. Birria. Oh my god. Onions. Get more coriander than your average person would like, but we love a bit of coriander. Get some ches.
I'll just move this bag off this chair, Mum.
Give this a second. Use this time to consider all of the paths that led us to this moment, which was mostly just bullying free labour from my friends and family over the past 4 years. Where's the lie? I wish I had a more professional setup, but we've got butcher's paper in the garden. So, while that's doing its ting-ting, there's the spoons, there's consommé. So, birria. Because I subscribe to the New York style pizza. How are we looking? I'd eat that. Which is good because I bloody cooked it, so I might actually have to give that a second. So, what we do is we take our crispy birria brisket taco, which is rinsing all down my hands. We've got delicious consommé. Introduce the two together.
Look at me, look at this. I don't know this last name.
Holy shit. Why the fuck am I cooking briskets? Oh man. Like the chili, the spice, the onion, the coriander, the cheese, the mess. like and subscribe.